everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Grandville City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Marcy to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Gelderlos.
Here.
Mierenga.
Here.
Norhuck.
Here.
Steenstra.
Here.
Truce.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Present.
And Mayor Mas.
Here. So tonight, Councilmember Steenstra will be giving the invocation. So for those of you who wish, I invite you to stand and we're going to follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pray with me if you'd like. Father God, we pause a moment at the beginning of this meeting to give you thanks for this time of year and this place. We thank you for the beautiful weather, the change of seasons, the cool things that are happening in town, watching people walk and ride bikes and play sports and go to Friday night music festivals at the Commons. It's just a great time of year, and we praise you for that. We also praise you for our city, its citizens. We are so happy to represent them, and we pray for our leadership team, the directors of the departments, the city manager and his staff, and we just ask for continued blessings as we try to make this a great place to work and live. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it very much. We have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Griffin has indicated that he would like to make one small change to it, and that is remove item under the consent agenda, number 5A. They're going to be getting more quotes on that.
Yes.
So if he's requesting that be removed from tonight's agenda. So with that modification, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So support.
Support. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Great. We have minutes from our last meeting, which was May 19, which seems like a long time ago. It was 3 weeks. Had a chance to take a look at those. So is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So
Motion
support.
and support. Any comments?
Just one correction on the back, when it comes to the approval of the additional millage. Josh is listed as having voted yes and no, and I have not listed, so.
Okay.
If you could update that.
All right, Marcy will make that correction. Okay, Tim.
That was
Oh,
same
okay.
comment.
All right. All right. All right, so with that modification, and the motion and support, all those in favor of approving those minutes, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a substantial bill list tonight, about $702,000. Griffin, you wanna point out anything to us before we open it up for questions?
Yes, thank you. Yep, it's been a few weeks since we've all been together, so there is a pretty standard amount in terms of the checks being presented for approval this evening. We'd like to draw your attention to a few. One of them is going to be on one of the pre-cut check registers in the amount of $20,792.92. This is the Ecoff Columbarium Inc. This is the Columbarium deposit that was approved by City Council on April 28th. That is to get that ordered so we can get it installed this upcoming fiscal year. If you move on to the regular check register, quite a few kind of higher numbered items this time, but several of them are kind of our standard vendors, so I won't repeat too many of them, but a couple that we don't see quite as much is there was an invoice in the amount of $9,000 to Grand Rapids Community College. This was one of the payments to the GRCC Police Academy, where we send various employees of the police department as they're going through their training. You will see the Michigan Municipal League's dues in the amount of $7,499. Those are the membership dues for fiscal year 25-26. We have Prime Coat Inc. in the amount of just over $7,000. This was the recent maintenance and sealing performed on the City Hall and Fire Department parking lots to keep those in good shape. Ramon's Gardens, I may be mispronouncing that, so I apologize, and Greenhouse Inc. in the amount of $13,208. This was for flowers and replacements related to the hanging baskets along Chicago Drive. That's funded by the DDA. We have a larger amount from Varnum. This was because this was a combined couple month invoices, and then also included a significant amount associated with the settlements of several tax appeals. So that's why that amount may seem larger than normal. And then lastly, West Michigan Sprinkling in the amount of $14,557.71. This was to activate and perform significant kind of repairs and preventative maintenance work associated with almost all of the city's irrigation systems. So at various properties that we own, as well as the 44th Street Rivertown kind of parkway median. So happy to answer any questions, or as normal, I've got all the invoices with us if there's any we would like to look at in more detail.
Questions for Griffin on any of the bills tonight? If not, is there a motion to approve the bills tonight in the amount of $702,046.46?
So moved.
Motion
Support.
and support. Any final questions, comments? Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Merringa,
Yes.
Norhuck,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
Yes. Well, before we have public comment, we do have a presentation from Huntington Investment. So Jane, I don't know if you want to make some comments, or our friends from Huntington?
We're kind of gonna do this together.
Okay.
This is Jamie Hebebrand. She's our investment broker with Huntington National Bank. No, Huntington Securities, sorry.
Subsidiary.
Yeah, subsidiary. And tonight we are bringing you some information. This does fall under my purview as the Director of Finance. However, I looked back and I couldn't see the last time that this had been done, and so I thought maybe a little education and open discussion might be in order tonight. One of the things that I've been watching since I started is our investments. You know that we present you an investment report every month, and the highlighted investments are some that I've had my eye on since my first day. These were investments purchased back right smack dab in the middle of COVID, when interest rates were very low. They were purchased for a 5-year period of time, and within the next year, all of these will be coming due. However, with interest rates being what they are, I feel that it's prudent now to have a discussion about liquidating these investments and placing them with something that is a much higher rate of earning. And Jamie's gonna kind of walk us through what that looks like and why now is the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to go to the next slide. So the 7 positions that Jane outlined on the previous slide are right here as well. They amount to a par amount of just over 4.1 million. The discussion came along where interest rates, these were all purchased back in 2021 when interest rates were at 0. So they have low coupons attached to them. You've held them close to 4 years now. And by liquidating them, obviously over the last 4 years, interest rates have gone up. By liquidating them now and reinvesting them into something that is guaranteed at least a rate of 4.7% for 1 year, you're going to end up as a overall net gain of just over $94,000 is the estimate. The kicker is you do have to take a little bit of a loss up front because the interest rate that you're going to get on it, you're going to take a realized loss when we go to liquidate the securities, but you're going to make it up with the reinvestment over that rebalancing of the portfolio. Additionally, just so you know, that 4.18 million has already generated just over $163,000 in interest already. So when you look at it as a whole, the principal amount of what you're gonna lose has already been made up in the interest that you've earned. So you're only gonna gain more. And then this is just a couple slides that I wanted to show where the interest rates were going. Right now, this is the Fed futures slide. I'll talk very high level on it, but basically it's projecting that the market is gonna, that the Fed will cut rates 3 to 4 times over the next 12-month period. That's still yet to be determined, obviously. It's gonna determine the continued economic data that comes in. We got some CPI inflation data reading that'll come out here in a couple days. But overall, interest rates are expected to come down, so if you can rebalance the portfolio now, lock in a higher rate before they do start to come down with the first estimated Fed rate cut happening in September, now would be the time to do it. And then this is where the previous chart was the Fed futures chart. This is called the Federal Reserve dot plot chart. Basically every yellow dot on there represents a voting member of the Federal Reserve, and if they were the ones running the show, where they think interest rates should be. And so at the end of 2025, the majority of voting Fed members believe that interest rates will be between 3.75 and 4%. Right now, they're between that 4.5 and 4.25 and 4.5%. So the consensus is that the voting Fed members believe that they'll cut rates at least twice before year end.
So that's why right now is the sweet spot. I've been keeping my eye on these. I've been talking to Jamie about it. And a couple weeks ago, we had a call to talk about some other things that were coming due and we needed to reinvest. And I just kind of opened a very broad discussion about whether or not now is the prudent time, just based on the data that we've seen. And this is really the sweet spot. If we leave it where it is, by the time we have to reinvest it, interest rates are trending quite a bit lower. She said 4 to 5 times between the next year, next 12 months. And also, if we wait to do this, we're not going to get the earnings from where we are right now, because things are still very low with our return. So this is our sweet spot. This is our time to do this. And that's it.
I've
Thanks,
got a
Marcy.
question, maybe you've covered it already, but, so the new investment, if that were to be, if the old one liquidated, realizes small loss, then reinvest,
Mhm.
that would be reinvested in what?
Government agency bonds.
The same-
So
the
fully
same
AAA
type-
rated,
Yep,
government
simple
backed.
time, the same type of investment that we have been investing in. Fully backed.
Is there a penalty for not waiting 5 years, and is that rolled into the loss?
That is part of the loss.
Okay.
It's roughly $104,000 for the loss across that $4.2 million. Just so you know, I do have a loss budgeted for this year, so it's not even gonna create any kind of budget amendment for that particular loss. It was built in at the beginning of the year, just based on the uncertainty of what was happening with the presidential election. I just built that into the budget.
Sure.
I'm guessing that a lot of the ones highlighted in yellow were based off of the rates.
Yes.
So why not the first two, or
Do you want me to pop that
the
open?
other one,
Yeah.
that's a 1.375?
Marcy, sorry.
There's 3 in there that are lower than your highest rate of one that you're talking about.
I believe those ones are gonna be maturing over the next 3 to 6 months, so, and they were lower dollar amounts, and just, for those, it honestly just made sense to just let them mature and continue to gain those coupons until the, maturity date, which will happen in November and October of this year.
That's fine, and then the last one, the 1.375 one further down, I know it doesn't mature till 27, but
That one, is actually a step bond, so it's gonna go up in coupon. So that one didn't make sense. By the last 4 or 6 months of that bond, it's actually gonna be at 4%. So it's just structured how that bond works, and it didn't make sense to roll it into this.
And the city's investments are something Jamie and I are constantly looking at. We're having conversations all the time. Again, I have been watching these since I started. It just wasn't the right time to move on these, and now is. So,
And when Jane came to me, kind of bring this up and kind of ask my thought of it, I mean, this is traditionally something that would fall under, the finance director and the treasurer's responsibility. And really my just ask at that time was, if this wasn't something we'd done in a while, let's bring it to council, just make sure everyone's comfortable, really more having that conversation like we have with some where we don't need a formal vote this evening. We're really just looking to make sure that everyone's comfortable with this direction, kind of recognizing the short-term consequence, but
the long-term gain.
The longer-term strategy.
Yeah. And so because we present the investment report every month, you have an expectation of what to see on there. Hopefully the next June investment report will look much different, so.
And we
With
want you to
higher
understand
interest
why
rates.
it looks different,
Yeah,
and not just
exactly.
suddenly go, what happened?
What happened, yeah.
When was the last time, maybe neither one of you know this because you haven't been here long enough, but when was the last time we've done anything like this?
I looked back and I couldn't really tell. Jamie's been with us for quite a while. I don't think there's been a need. So.
We haven't done, and as long as I've been handling the city's investments, which dated prior when it was Tammy Hotman, interest rates were just regular 2-3%, which is what everything was in, and then COVID hit. And then the strategy during that time was try to buy longer term bonds. That was due to the previous, right after the market crash of 08-09. Interest rates stayed at 0 for 7 years. The anticipation during that time, unfortunately, inflation wasn't being discussed when a lot of these bonds were being purchased. They were still calling inflation transitory. And so then obviously inflation took off and interest rates started rising in March of 2022, and they skyrocketed, which when the prices of bonds and yield work inversely with each other. So it brought the bonds very underwater.
And we take a barbell approach here. We have a pile of money, chunk of money that is short-term only, and then we have some money that we like to push out longer because from a liquidity standpoint, we don't need it. And so that's why this amount was pushed out 5 years. That was the other side of the barbell, the right side of the barbell. And we're planning to do that again long-term, 5 years with these next set of investments. So the only real risk here is if we were to need that $5 million for liquidity, but our total portfolio is 28, so it's only about 15% of that.
My last question is, maybe it's for Griffin, is how often do municipalities do this? From your experience, is this a common practice?
What I will tell you is this varies dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I have worked for municipalities that they put all of their investments in kind of one type of account, and it gets very little interest, and how they feel is it's very liquid, it's very safe, but in terms of what they're bringing in interest, it's very, very low. I've worked with others that have been more aggressive, understanding as a municipality we have very strict restrictions on what you can and what you can't invest in. So I think the best answer I have for you is it really depends on what your finance director's experience and comfort level with these conversations are, as well as what comfort level the governing body has in just terms of having some of these conversations and what they feel like is in the best interest. What I would tell you is most of these decisions are going to be handled at a staff level with a financial advisor with their finance director, so I don't think there are conversations that happen a lot at this level, but as Jane mentions, I mean, she's regularly kind of exploring and looking at kind of that investment portfolio that we have to make sure it's doing the best it can for our taxpayers. I would say, like in this case, I'm very comfortable with this step. I would also say I wouldn't expect this is a conversation we're gonna have to have very often.
No.
This is just kind of a unique environment when it comes to the timing, and you know, we could go, no, we're good, let's just ride it out. That's okay, you're still gonna be making, you know, interest. It's just one of those that it's kind of a unique opportunity to go in a really short period of time. We can essentially go from making very little to a not insignificant amount. I mean, if Jane would have brought this up and said, oh, we have to go through this song and dance, and yeah, maybe it'll make 10 or 12 grand for the city over a year, then it's maybe not worth it. But I know what they're proposing is in a 1 year period of time. I mean, we take the realized loss of about 100 grand up front, and after 1 year, make about 200 grand. I mean, $100,000 is not an insignificant amount for our organization.
Josh?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this to us. I think this is a great idea. I think we should do this. Appreciate you kind of keeping tabs on all these different investments and things like that, both of you, and you know, bringing this for our consideration. So the 4.7% that you mentioned, is that locked in for 5 years, or how much could that vary over a 5 year period if we make this change?
Great question. So it's a callable bond, and so you're guaranteed locked in for that 1 year. So it can't be called before that 1 year, and then after that, depending on where interest rates are at, it can be called in. But the thought would be to reinvest where interest rates are at that time, which are still estimated where the Fed, even if they do cut rates 2 or 3 times, they'll be reinvested at 3.5%. And we'll look at longer term investments again, because interest rates have been the highest they've been in 20 plus years. So.
So 4.7% is pretty decent for bonds.
Absolutely, fully government backed and AAA rated.
That's better than I'm getting my money market account. That's mutual funds, right?
And that's on the short end. I mean,
Yeah.
Jane didn't touch on that, but we also have the liquid funds with the barbell approach and government securities as well, yielding 4.24% right now. So.
My last question is, you mentioned inflation. Has there been any estimates on inflation this year yet, or is that still coming out? Or?
Yeah, so there'll be some data that will be released on Wednesday this week, but overall they do expect inflation it's been very stubborn, to come down. The tariffs and everything are throwing a wrench in things right now. There's a lot of uncertainty with that because there could be some tailwinds with tariffs, depending on what way those go. But overall, we're not seeing inflation increase too much right now, or that's not what the analysts are saying.
Thank you.
Randy?
So we've got 7 funds here with maturity dates anywhere from 9 months out, a couple of them 10 months out, 11 months out, 12, and the longest is like 15, 16 months.
Yep.
You know, rough numbers. So if we did this proposal, then would all 7 of those funds have the same maturity date going forward?
It would, that would depend on how we reinvest the funds. The thought for this would be to take that one lump, liquidate all 7, and then put them into the one security that would guarantee that 4.7%. Because
that would be like a 5-year term?
it would be a 5-year callable with a 1-year lock. Right now, if you just buy a 1-year U.S. Treasury, it's going to get you like 4.05%, and the math doesn't work for that. That's why you have to buy a callable in order to get that 4.7%, which is where Jane talks about the only risk is that if you do need the money and that bond keeps going
It doesn't
all the
get
way to
called
5 years,
after
and
a
it
year.
doesn't get called, but the market, everything else is, if rates stay up at 4 in the mid 4s for the next 5 years and the Fed doesn't do anything, that's against everything that's, the market and the Fed is saying right now. The Fed does want to get rates down. They would like to get rates down to the 3% range, and right now they're between 4.25 and 4.50. So long term, they want to get down to 3%. How long it takes them is going to depend on the data that comes in. How fast the Fed does start cutting rates, and so forth.
Any other comments, questions? Justin?
Yeah, most of mine have been answered, so thank you very much for that. It sounds like this is a very collaborative approach between the city and you. So we're not really ceding any control over anything, we're just jointly making this decision with the opportunity at the end of the 5 years to then come up with another strategy if they're not called before that time period, is that correct? All right, and then my second question is just, because I'm interested in learning about this process. Is there in our agreement with Huntington any clause around fiduciary duty for the bank in dealing with city funds?
So, I'm a licensed broker. I definitely have to act in the best interest of the city, and I use all the tools. I have a Bloomberg terminal that I work from, and we use all the tools, including that Fed futures market and Fed futures, Federal Reserve dot plot chart, along with everything else that's coming in to kind of determine where to ladder investments along with cash flow needs. And so you're very limited at the city. There's a Public Act 20 is what you're allowed to invest in, and it's literally, commercial paper, US Treasury bonds, and government agency bonds. It's very limited, and it's all within the bond market.
And in order for us to do that, we have to have a broker.
Mhm.
I am not licensed. I cannot do this myself. I have to have a broker. And so we're not obligated to them. We don't have a contract with them. This is a voluntary collaborative effort between the two of us. It is a, relationship based,
But on that point, Jane, it's also not a new relationship.
we've been working with
My
Huntington
understanding
for
is quite some
quite a
time.
while.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've been with Huntington 19 years, and I worked with Tammy, and then prior to that,
Tom
retired.
Gunther?
Tom retired and got in his RV and left.
Yeah.
So I've been around a while.
Yeah, excuse me, just to follow up. So we get quarterly reports on these funds, don't we?
Monthly.
Monthly.
You get a monthly investment report. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Do we have, and I'm trying to remember, but do we have any other fund, a single line item of fund that will have over $4 million in it? What other?
We have a couple of money market accounts that have a bit higher balances, but we are not outside the bounds of our investment policy. Jamie and I reviewed that together before we brought this to you all to make sure that we were adhering to that. If we wanted to do this and the investment policy didn't allow it, what we would have had to do is bring an amendment or a modification to the investment policy to you prior. However, all of what the transactions that we're asking, that we're planning on doing, we're not really asking, we're just letting you know that this is gonna happen. Those are well within the scope of our investment policy. So
And
yes.
that's the tool, if I can interrupt, Jane, like if that's the tool that if at some point down the road, council wants to have more conversation about what our investments look like and our investment strategy looks like, that policy is really where you guys set those parameters and then staff goes ahead and implement them. And that's again why I apologize, I didn't want to create kind of confusion this evening, but this is within the policy, so within kind of Jane's purview, it's more of, I think, J.R., kind of what you were hitting. It's not something we do all the time, so we just felt it would be more prudent just to have this conversation and make sure you all kind of were aware with what we're going. But if that policy is something you all would like to have more conversation about down the road, please, let me know offline or however you prefer. That is really the best tool we could have future conversations around.
And you did update and approve that policy in mid-2020, so it hasn't been that long since that policy was reviewed and talked about and updated.
Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, thank you very much for the presentation and the information. Appreciate it.
And thanks for the great questions.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Time for public comment. Anybody here tonight like to address the council? Please just come on up to the podium, give us your name, address, and tell us what you think. Mike, welcome.
I'd like to just thank Tammy for staying up, Jane for staying up on that. Well, Tammy was on that stuff too, and I think cashing them in early for the long-term gain is the way to go. And thanks for serving and happy summer.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else like to address the council? Just Sir, come on up to the podium, give us your name and address,
Sure
and
thing.
tell us what you're thinking about this evening.
Hey everybody, first time here. Thanks for having me. So my name is Ben Kynes. I live at 3940 Prairie Street, just right around the corner. I just learned about the meeting just last week, so really excited to be here. So last week, my wife and I noticed a construction crew kind of like bringing up the curb, pouring new curbs and all that stuff, which is great, looks nice. But for the last week or so, it's still been kind of tore up there, and my yard has about like 12 to 18 inches, about 18 inches deep, just this long pit along the whole like front of our yard. And I was just curious like what the timeline was, because I wasn't aware that that project was going on. So I was just curious where I could learn a little bit more about that. And also our next door neighbor, and this was kind of unfortunate, but one of them had like a health incident, and you guys, well, I shouldn't say you guys, with the repairs, it didn't allow them to get into their driveway, and one of them was a little immobilized and had some difficulty. So we weren't aware about this project going on. So I guess the questions would be, where could I get like a timeline on when this will be repaired and finalized, and where can I learn more about like future projects that are happening along Prairie Avenue?
Griffin, do you wanna
Yeah.
talk about it, or Charlie?
Absolutely. So I guess the best thing I'm gonna do that's gonna be the most helpful is when we're done here this evening, if you wanna talk to the gentleman over here in the blue shirt, Charlie is our DPW director, so probably what he's gonna need is your name and a phone number. Let him talk with his staff first thing tomorrow morning. He can give you a call back with an update on that exact timeline. I know we've got projects going around all over town right now, and
Yeah.
I kind of the phrasing I always use is kind of the short-term inconvenience for the longer-term benefit of them. So I know we're having lots of conversations as a team of, you know, how we can get better in terms of kind of the broader communication of a lot of things, but unfortunately I probably have an unsatisfying answer of just some of those smaller projects in terms of like one-off concrete repairs and pieces of curb, you know, unless it's a major road getting completely shut down. A lot of times the communication about some of those things is minimal, and unfortunately it sounds like this one has taken longer than they normally do, so I apologize for that. But if you want to talk to Charlie when you're done here today, I know he'll follow up with that concrete contractor, and we can get you a timeline.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you, Ben. Anybody else here like to address the council? Come on up. Last chance, last call. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have a few things under there. The May reports for the police and the treasurer's office, and then also some minutes, the Park and Recreation Board, April minutes, and May minutes from the Environmental Sustainability Committee, Historical Commission, Library Board. And we also have a renewal of an agreement with the Children's Assessment Center, great organization, that's very helpful. Chief, thank you for having a good relationship with that group. The amount hasn't changed, I believe, it's the same amount as it's been. Very helpful to children especially. And we also have a proclamation, National Flag Day and Flag Week. So, council, anything on there that you'd like to discuss in particular? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Support. And support. All right, and there are no purchases in there, so all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say yes. Yes. Any opposition, please say no. Great, city manager's report.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I will do my best to keep this pretty short. I've got a few updates to share, and then really no action we're looking for, except at the conclusion of the meeting, if you all are willing, we would be looking for a motion to adjourn into a tour of the fire station. That way it's still appropriate for all of us or all of you as a council and all of us as a team to go over there together. Members of the public are welcome to attend as well, but we'd really like to just take a minute to show you all kind of the final product of that significant investment you all made over the last couple of years in terms of roof replacements and other types of improvement to the fire station. In terms of just a few updates I want to share with the group, one that I know has been on several of your mind is the fire chief recruitment. So I am really happy to share that we had some really successful interviews, hosted 2 panels, a technical panel and a community panel made up of some various volunteers to help us assess the candidate pool we received. Our team has extended an offer to a candidate. It was accepted, but we are waiting to share the name until physical background and other pre-employment contingencies are cleared, just out of respect to the process and to that candidate. But I am hopeful and aiming to bring that candidate before you all at our next meeting on June 23 for confirmation, with the goal of still trying to get them to overlap with Chief May for a week or 2 before his retirement. So I think we're in a really good place with that process. I'd be happy to talk one-on-one more if you all have any other questions, but we're in a good place, just waiting to put that name out at the appropriate time in the process. We are going to be noticing a noise variance request according to our ordinance. It is not something that's uncommon. It's associated with some road work on that stretch of 44th Street to the east of Ivan Rest that we added to the road docket. The contractor is anticipating needing 2 evenings to get that project done in time. So we will be noticing that and bringing that to you as well later in the month. I was asked to bring up that we are finalizing the parade entries for the 4th of July parade, and that if the city council as a whole was looking to have an entry like I believe has been done in the past, to please let me know or please reach out to Teresa to coordinate that. Obviously, for those of you who are running for office or kind of have individual entries, that's a separate conversation you can have with her. But if the city council as a whole is looking to have an entry, please let me know, and I'm happy to help coordinate that. I do want you all to be aware that this afternoon we received the filings for a lawsuit against the city regarding a FOIA request that had been processed over the past few months. This has been referred to our insurance carrier. It is also my understanding that very similar lawsuits have been filed with several other of the Metro 6 entities in our area. So we will be waiting to hear back from our insurance carrier and work with them and the city attorney through that process. But just want to make you all aware that we just received that this afternoon. If you'd like some more information, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to brief you on that a little bit more. And then lastly, in case you haven't noticed, we have kind of barricaded off part of the side of the road of Ivan Rest just south of Chicago Drive on the east side, right there next to Porter Lake. We have been having some of that bank wash out with the heavy rain over the last couple weeks, and are discovering it looks like there is a drain pipe under that road that has somehow become disconnected. To date, it is not threatening the road, but it's getting a little closer than any of us would like to see. So we've got it barricaded right now and are exploring some options in terms of what type of repair may be necessary. But just because that was a little bit of a surprise over the last few weeks, I want to make sure you all are aware that we do know about it, and we're just working through some exploration associated with that. So those are the updates I have right now. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Anybody have questions for Griffin? Not, we'll do council member comments. Let's start with JR tonight.
Yeah, somehow 4th of July is 3.5 weeks away. So, yeah, I had on my radar too about the parade. I've already traditionally coordinated the vehicle. I have a driver in my household that's willing to participate as well, so I'm around. I don't know anybody else.
Can we just take a straw poll? Who's?
I'll be around.
You usually have your own vehicle.
Yeah, but I'm right next to you guys.
I mean,
You gonna do the parade, Josh?
Yeah, I think
You do 3, Tim?
I'm not sure if I'll be around.
Yeah, I think I will this year.
Okay. Got your answer, we'll just go to the city council for Teresa.
yeah, I like it. I think it's a fun way to
Yeah.
get involved.
Vehicle.
Yeah, and especially, just a note too, on the parade, I saw some different things happening this year. The 50-50 raffle, sounds like a fun idea. I'm sure Teresa will bring her own unique spins to this year's celebration, so I'm excited for it, I'm looking forward to it. Let's just hope it's not 115 degrees like
Ah.
it's, like it typically is.
It's earlier this year though.
It's earlier too, that's good. But that's all for me tonight, thank you.
Paul?
I have nothing to add, thanks.
I have nothing tonight.
Justin?
Just thank you to Jane for the presentation tonight and answering all of our questions. And I did just want to let Charlie know that I'm not responsible for the removal of the power wash water tank for the lack of bids. So that was not me this time. Let you know. That's it.
Josh?
Yeah, no, I just want to say congrats to our new police cadets. I saw the announcement about that the other day. We've got a couple of young ladies who will be joining their team as the cadets for the summer, so excited about that. And look forward to hearing about what work they're doing in the city and their travels through the parks, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that, so congratulations to them. I'm glad that they're working for us this summer. And then I thought I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I must not have, but I had the opportunity last month to participate in the second session with the West Michigan Dispute Resolution Center. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but might have been just prior to our last meeting, but I was kind of one of the city representatives along with Griffin and can't remember who else was there. A few other people were there as well to have that discussion with the neighbors, Billmar and the Little League representatives, and then some city folks. That was a very productive meeting. I think that was a very good move on our part to engage with the West Michigan Dispute Resolution Center. They're very professional. They did a good job of facilitating the conversation, and I thought we had some pretty appropriate, reasonable, realistic outcomes of that. Some things are still kind of working through the process, but we had some very good ideas as far as how we can address some of those concerns that were raised. And I thought that was a very productive meeting, so thanks again to Griffin and city staff for bringing that forward, but it was a pleasure to participate in that. Got to meet some new neighbors and people that I hadn't met before too, so that's always nice. Thanks.
I will work on lining up a car for the parade then.
I'll bring the magnets.
You bring the magnets.
Magnets.
Kind of hard to get magnets to stick on the plastic fenders and all that these days. Anyway, in regards to Councilman Norfolk's comment, there's nothing like being thrown under the bus. Well, I don't think it was a secret anyway. That's it.
Just one thing, last week, Griffin and I had kind of an interesting experience, and that is the state house has a program where they take one Democrat representative, one Republican representative, and kind of, for lack of a better word, they go on a field trip together and work collaboratively. This group, so is our representative Carol Grandville and also Representative Roth from Upper Michigan, the Republican representative for Beulah and Interlochen, that area, wanted to take a tour of the clean water plant. And so Todd and Scott did a great job of kind of explaining a complex process. The whole thing is, the plant is a huge investment, tens of millions of dollars that have gone into that plant. And we also had a chance to talk about, remember a few years ago we talked about a possible drying project because all this waste now has to be injected into farm fields, and it's getting harder to do and it's getting pretty expensive. So there's been kind of some discussions about a regional drying facility and so on. So we had, Scott and Todd had an opportunity to kind of explain that, and it seemed intriguing to the state reps, and especially, wow, that's super collaborative and saves money and so on. So anyway, it was good to see everybody getting along. It was a really interesting time together. I like that program. I think that's one of the really good things that's going on right now. So we need more of those things happening. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn to go over and do a tour of the fire station?
So, support.
And support. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Thank you, everybody.